On what information led to the conclusions that he's advising. And then you guys will be allowed 5 minutes to speak, to counter whatever's said or to share your views. Then the board will have 5 minutes.
So there'll be a motion to open the public
Okay.
hearing. The township will have 5 minutes, he'll have 5 minutes, he'll have 5 minutes, the township has 5 minutes, then he has another 5 minutes. Then we close the public hearing, then there's a motion to either sustain the denial.
So you will speak first, then we go second, then you'll get another opportunity, and then we'll have a motion and make a vote and call for a decision to be made this evening. Okay? That being said, no, it's a public hearing, so it's open to the public. Anybody who wants to come in. All right, if it's noise is bothering you, then yes, let's go ahead and close it. If it's distracting you, go ahead and close it, no problem. And then if somebody wants to come in, that's fine too. All right, so a call for a motion to open public hearing.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to open the appeals hearing for the denial of a 2019 license for Turlock and Gill at 6:32 PM.
Those in favor of the motion to open the public hearing, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. In terms of a summary, on March 22nd, Tyler Sean Gill submitted an application for soliciting, canvassing, peddling license for his ice cream truck business. The license application was denied March 27, 2019 by the township clerk, citing failure to comply with the requirements of Section 54-33B5 of the Township Code of Ordinances, which allows for the clerk to deny a license to a person whose master driving record indicates that his use or the use of a motor vehicle in association with the requested license may present an unreasonable threat to persons or property within the township by such use of a motor vehicle. Public Safety indicated that Mr. Gill had stopped recently in Westland on March 19, 2019 for speeding in a school zone. This, coupled with 2 traffic violations in 2016, impeding traffic, failure to stop in the assured clear distance, prompted the recommendation for the initial denial. So that being said, now would be the time to share with us what you'd like to see happen and why you feel justified in the request.
Is that okay if I speak on his?
Absolutely. This is your father. If you could, come to the podium, because we are recording, and that'll pick you up, and it should be on.
Hello? Yep.
So, yeah, that's good. And if you just state your name and address,
Yeah.
and the relationship with your father, then.
Okay. Actually, he's my uncle, my
Okay, very
friend's
good.
father.
Very good.
And my name is Gudavir Chawla, and I've known him for past 7-8 years. I live on Brooklyn Drive, 3571 in Canton as well. And the reason why we're here today is just basically based on, kind of like want to reopen this because this is his sole business. And yes, he did get a ticket recently. He made a mistake, and he accepted that, and he paid the fine at that point. But the thing is, like, he didn't get a chance to go to the court just because of the barrier, English barrier. So he can't really, he doesn't have a family here right now. He has rest of the family here. But that being said, there's other things. Should I address the other things on the record that's been presented to you guys as well?
Choose to. The board has the entire deck, which I believe was shared with you.
Okay.
that
Yes,
will
it
be
was.
taken into consideration for the decisions that the board makes. So if you would like to specifically address them, go right ahead.
Okay. So I want to go back to, there's a couple of things that was on his report that was shared back in 2016. There were 2 violations that said, Mr. Gill had inappropriate conduct. But the thing is, the investigation went on, and at the end, it was concluded that nothing of that nature was done. He cooperated with the officers, even though, he could have gotten someone else to help him out. But officers asked him, like, hey, this is what's been reported. Give us your phone, or, asked politely, the officers did, and then They went through the whole investigation, done the forensic search on the phone. They didn't find any of those. And if you read in the report, Mr. Gill, as you see, like he wears a turban. He's been said many things in the past. Even in the report, it says, like, by the person making the complaint that Mr. Gill, the guy wore a turban, Arabic guy, taking pictures of their son, autistic son, when the tower went down. But the thing is, in his business, he has a credit card machine which works with the phone. It's called Square. And the customer is buying ice cream at that point. And if he took that out, if it looked like that to that person, he cooperated with the officers to make sure that whatever they were saying is basically, solved. Because at the end of the day, he wasn't guilty for that, Same thing happened a month later or so. Someone said the same thing. And again, he cooperated with the officers. Again, whatever they asked, he done that. And in the conclusion, they said there was nothing found for the similar report. And then coming back to the citation, most recent one, yes, he did tell me that he may have been going a few miles over, and he did accept that, and he paid that infraction. In the past, too, in 2016, looking at the citation, there was impeding traffic, and then there was one accident. What he would like to say is that in past 20 years, these are the tickets that he has. These are the 3. Unfortunately, they happen to be within this time frame. And he's requesting from all of you guys, this is his sole source of income, this ice cream business. And either he can do this or he can sit home and collect money from the state, which he doesn't want to do. He's healthy enough, he's willing to work, and he pays his taxes and stuff like that. Just making a request. He do understand that this is not his right, but it's a privilege. And he appreciates that you guys are listening to what he has to say about this. Let me ask him if he has anything else. ਕੁਝ ਹੋਰ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬਸ ਕਿਹਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਪੂਰੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀਗੀ
ਹਾਂ
ਤੇ ਦੱਸ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਕੰਮ ਹੈਗਾ ਵਾ
ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹਾ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਹੋਰ ਨਹੀਂ
Yeah.
6 ਮਹੀਨਾ ਬਾਅਦ ਹੀ ਚੱਲਦਾ ਹੋਰ ਤੇ ਕੋਈ
Yeah.
ਕੰਮ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ
Yeah.
ਇਹ ਦੱਸ
Basically, he's just saying the same thing I just explained to you guys.
I think all the trustees have had an opportunity to review the deck, the material. I don't have any specific questions for yourselves. The information in the deck is pretty clear. But I find the 2 reports are unsettling for me because of the proximity of time between on the photographic stuff. No charges were pressed. What did I think the report speaks for itself. It just, I don't know, Josh, if there's anything you can add to.
No, in both of these cases, there were no charges. In one of the cases, we spoke with the prosecutor. The prosecutor didn't issue charges. That's typically the process that we handle. We don't, as an agency, we don't issue charges. That's the role of the prosecutor. We present the facts, the information to the prosecutor, and they make a charging decision. And so.
Let me translate. We've had far more serious, potentially life-threatening circumstances that we presented to our county prosecutors who, I'm thinking last summer shooting over on the east side of town. Prosecutor says, not a high priority for us, we're not going to press charges. So that happens, and I think that's the point you're trying to make here, is our officers do the report that we submit it to the prosecutor. The prosecutor makes the decision to have time to deal with and process or not. It's not a local officer's decision. That's your point. Am I being clear enough or no?
Yes, I can't say, I can't speak for why the prosecutor in all cases denies charges. I wouldn't necessarily say it's because the prosecutor is busy. They're very busy, the Wayne County prosecutor. But again, they take everything into consideration when they review these cases, and they try to make the best decision that they can. And again, it boils down to the information that's presented to them, and our agency, the police department, the officers, the detective bureau, they do the best that they can and to investigate these incidents, document them, and put forward the information to the prosecutor's office.
Any board questions, comments? Go ahead, Steve.
The concern for me is that both issues, both the driving infractions and the other infractions, are by nature of the business around children, and that concerns me.
Sure.
If it was a business that did not have that as a characteristic, I might be more inclined to support another chance. But the behavior in terms of with the phone and then, of course, incidents of traffic violations also concern me.
Sure.
Can we describe the traffic incidents? Is there detail on that at all?
So what we do when we get these is we take a look at it and we try to pull up as much factual information as we can to make a decision. In this particular case, because Mr. Gill is driving a vehicle, commercial vehicle, I guess if you will, to sell ice cream, there's kids involved, we take the safety of our community very serious. So when we take a look at these things, we pulled up the incidents. We had, as I think it's included in your packet, we had a speeding ticket just recently in a school zone where the applicant, it's alleged the applicant was at 41 miles an hour in a 25-mile-an-hour zone. And then we also had the fail to stop within a assured clear distance and causing an accident and then impeding traffic as well. So those were the three tickets that we found when we reviewed the applicant's packet.
I'll just agree with Stephen and with the safety director. I have concerns both with the tickets, especially at the school, that's dangerous,
Sure.
and then with the allegations of the pictures. We want to make sure, our children are safe and.
Of course. Of course.
Mr. Gill have a valid Michigan driver's license.
Yes.
Vehicle that he uses for ice cream, is it a truck, is it a car?
It's a GMC Sienna. It's a van.
Savannah 97.
Correct?
97.
97 key.
GM Savannah.
Savannah.
Does that require a different license to operate that van?
What even? No,
No, ਉਹ ਮੇਰੀ
it's just a regular operator license.
Does that require different insurance if he's selling ice cream?
Bakri ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਉਹਦੇ ਲਈ?
ਨਹੀਂ ਲਈ ਹੈ ਨਾ
Different automobile insurance?
No.
Liability insurance?
No, sir.
ਹੁਣ ਸੋਚ ਲਈ
Yep.
no
Are there other communities in which he has a license to sell the ice cream?
Currently, no. In the past, yes, he's sold ice cream in Garden City.
ਉਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਹਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਲਿਆ
No, last year.
Yeah, last.
Garden
Wetland,
City
wetland.
and Westland.
What happened with those licenses?
He applied the application. He's waiting to hear back from them. Yeah,
Past years, he was just in Canton?
yeah.
Yeah.
No, actually, in the past too, he has gotten license back in Canton, Garden City, and Westland.
Yes.
All three places.
Josh, I guess there's one of the tickets from 2016, and there's a subject. Does that go along with what happened at the park, or is that separate? I'm just trying to put this one together.
Which citation? There's two from 2016. I don't,
7/16/16 at 1859. That's what happened in the park, or that's a separate one?
those are, oh, you're talking about the incident reports, not the citations. Those are two, no, the citations are unrelated to the incident reports, if that's what you're,
They're unrelated with what was happening in the park then?
correct. Yeah, because that's not even, that's a 7 and 6.
Yes, I have a concern also with being around children and the phones and also the one ticket being speeding in the school zone, which we see all the time. which is a real concern.
Makes sense. Okay. Anyone else?
Summer?
I agree with what's been said. I have concerns about speeding in the school zone. I have a 14-year-old who loves to roam the streets of Canton, who used to walk to school, and safety of kids is paramount in my opinion. And I think we can't have commercial drivers driving through the city with a Canton license that are not respectful of our traffic laws.
Sure. Any?
I guess now we'll provide you a couple
Sure.
minutes to respond to what's been said, and then we'll close the public hearing, and then we'll
Of course.
vote one way or the other.
Sense. So, thank you for first listening, and I respect all of your guys' opinion. But may I ask, who doesn't have any civil infraction here? Just out of concern. I'm just because the thing is, see, this happens, and because of that reason, he is apologetic that this happened to him, right? He's been driving for past 20 years. Again, even driving is a privilege, and he understands that completely. And I don't mean to offend anyone by asking that question. I know, I'm just trying to relate by asking that. And yes, the children safety concern, he himself has grandchildren, and the thing is that, yes, he made a mistake. And yes, he is agreeing to the civil infraction. And I know the reports from the park are coming up again. Everyone is concerned about that. But I do want you guys to keep in mind that these things, if you read the report, what it says in there about describing Mr. Tarluchin Gill, to me, that's a concern too. Everybody perceived everyone differently. And given his appearance, he stands out. And nowadays, phone are the source of business, and most of the business is done for him in moving vehicle or anything like that. There's no POS system, so he has to carry his phone to use credit card service if someone wants to pay by that. And if someone mistakes that for something else, he's cooperative, and that's what he did. And that's what I want you guys to know, that yes, it came up to him, but he didn't resist. He didn't do anything like that. Anytime someone came to him, like, hey, guys, listen, someone said so-and-so about you, and this is a serious charge. We want to look into it. Fine. This is not the first time it happened to him. I'm not talking about this incident, just in general. But his appearance plays a big role. And because of that, working anywhere else, let's say McDonald's, it's not easy for him to get that job too. The reason why he drives this truck into his own business is because he has that freedom. He doesn't have to, stay at one place and be offended by it. He accepts it, he moves on. It's just the nature of who he is. And it's just something I want you guys to keep in consideration when making a decision. Because the thing is, anyone can point fingers. And until this guy is proven of doing some harm, I'm not talking about the civil infraction. I'm talking about the other reports. I would like, trustees, right, to kind of keep that aside when making a decision. But I know why you guys are thinking that this is related, just because of his nature of business. It happened there. But again, he has been doing this for past 9 years, this ice cream business. And same thing. you know. But again, unfortunately, this has happened, the civil infraction, just a couple of days before his application.
Same day.
See, the thing is, if this were to happen a couple of days after, he would have gotten a
No,
license
same-
already.
Same day, same day.
So I just want to say, just keep that in consideration. And as much as you guys worry about the safety of the children, so does he. And that's why he makes sure everything with his van and whatever he can do is done legally. And whatever, he's up to par with every other code with his business. So I do appreciate all of your guys' time, and thank you for listening to us.
Thank you. Okay, do we close public hearing and then have a motion, or? Okay, so a call for a motion to close public hearing.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to close the appeals hearing for the, to the denial of the 2019 license for Tarlock and Gill.
Those in favor to close the public hearing, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, go ahead, sit down if you like.
Thank you.
The,
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion that's been drafted that can go one way or the other. Do we have a trustee who's willing to read that motion the way they believe consensus appears to be? Someone? We have a motion to be read. I'm asking for someone to present the motion. Diane says she'll do it, so we just need somebody to read it, so.
So I move that the determination of the Board of Trustees upon hearing all the evidence submitted and reviewing documents is deny the appeal.
Or,
That's not over.
oh, sorry.
And uphold the clerk's denial of the 2019 license. And I move to open the appeals.
No, that's it.
Okay, no, okay.
Typo, it ends at denial of the
2019
2019 license, yes. Okay, so we have a motion. It could have been read one way or the other. It was decided to be read that way. Is there support for the motion on the floor?
Support.
Motion, we have support. Those in favor of the motion as presented, please state aye. And do we need to do a voice with this being,
No,
okay, just, call for a motion. Those who support the motion as presented, state aye.
aye.
Those opposed? Okay. So we have concluded not to reopen the appeal, or the denial. The denial stands. The initial denial stands.
And that is just for the 2019 license. Mr. Gill will have an opportunity to reapply in 2020 if he would like.
In that case, whatever has been considered today would be considered next time as well.
We would, public safety would look at the master driving record, and they would make a recommendation, and I would, act accordingly. And
For next year, so 2020, a
Yep.
year from now.
Welcome. Okay, now we're moving on to general calendar. We have 5 minutes here, so a little 6-minute break, and then we'll open up the meeting at 7. All right, is there anything else technically, Michael, that we need to do for 6 minutes? Okay. Just completed our special hearing. Could ask Clerk Segrist call the roll.
Trustee Anthony.
Present?
Foster.
Good evening.
Graham Hudak.
Evening.
Let the record reflect that Clerk Segrist is in attendance. Treasurer Slavens.
Good evening.
Trustee Snyderman.
I am here tonight.
And Supervisor Williams.
Hello. I would like to call for a motion to approve the agenda as presented with one change, and that's to move item G8 up to G0 to respect Carolyn's time this evening.
So moved.
Support.
Favor of the agenda as with the modification to move G8 up to G0, say aye.
Aye.
Carries. We have a call for a motion to approve the minutes of April 9th, 2019 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Favor the motion is presented, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now would be the time in our agenda for citizens' non-agenda comments. If there's anybody here that would like to speak to an item that's not on the agenda, now would be the time. Okay, seeing none, ask that, let's see,
Mr. Supervisor,
payment of the bills, please, Treasurer.
I make a motion that we pay the bills.
Second.
Those in favor of the motion to pay the bills again this month, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now ask Clerk Segrist to read the consent calendar as a single motion.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that the board adopt the consent calendar as presented with item C1, appointment to the Historic District Commission of, I believe, Joan Lager. And item C2, consider the second reading of Code of Ordinance amendments to Part 1, Chapter 74, entitled Utilities, Article 2, Division 2.
Not C3?
And item C.
Lots of helpers.
Yeah, thank you. And item C3, consider approval of a Metro Act permit for U.S. Signal.
Those in favor of the motion as presented, oh, do I have a second for the
Yes.
motion? Okay. Those in favor of the motion as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, first item is item G8 that we pulled ahead. Get to it. Consider approval of CD BG Housing Rehab change order.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to waive the internal policy and exceed the $25,000 per home threshold limit, award the increase to the change order to the contract for a housing rehabilitation at the Fernwood to Scranton Home, address to Scranton Home Improvement in the amount of $4,000 additional dollars.
Support.
In summary, the Finance and Budget Department's requesting the board to approve a change order for a housing rehab project funded by CDBG, previously awarded by the township on May 24th, 2018, for $24,900 by an additional $4,000. After the contractor began work on the Fernwood home, it was determined that the sheathing, 80 sheets of OSB under the roof shingles, needed to be replaced. The township has an internal, self-induced, I guess is the best way to put it, policy that limits one home's rehabilitation project to a maximum of $25,000. As this work will cause the project to exceed that amount, coming back to the board and asking for approval for this one-time purpose, waive the policy. And basically, when they started to get into the roof work, they decided that there was more damage than they had previously seen. So are there any questions? We have a representative from finance because we have the Salem, I think, Salem-Plymouth soccer games tonight or something to that effect. So that's where Wendy's at. Do we have any questions? Go ahead, Anne Marie.
So this is the picture, it's just in that one area where the hole is, or do they have to take it all up? Or does anyone know? No.
The pictures that were provided show the issues with the roof once they took off the shingles and started to roof. There wasn't just one area, there were multiple areas, $4,000 worth of really the wood that needed to be replaced. That's really what the additional funding is for.
Second photo, I think, is a better shot at the
Hole?
whole board damage or deterioration. Go ahead, Stephen.
Just to be clear, so we've done a lot with CDBG lately, and this was not from the ones we just approved in the past or are about to this cycle. We did a modification, I think, recently, right?
Right, this was from a bid that went out and the board approved on May 24th
Last year.
of 18.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so it was last year's cycle
Yes.
of money that we're just adding a little bit more
Yes.
to. Thanks.
Questions? Those in favor of the motion as presented, state aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on, item G1, we're back to G1. Consider approval of special land use for all-rig multi-tenant building.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that the board adopt the following resolution. Resolution of the Board of Trustees, Charter Township of Canton, Michigan, approval of the special land use for a multiple-tenant commercial building, formerly Hayden's Restaurant. Is that correct? Okay. Whereas the project sponsor has requested special land use approval for a multiple-tenant building that would incorporate general office, medical and dental clinics, training and education center, standard bar, restaurant with accessory pickup window, specialty retail, business services, and personal service establishments, and general retail use on the tax parcel listed located at the southeast corner of Ford and Lots Road, and whereas the Planning Commission reviewed the request and applicable criteria and voted 6-0 to recommend approval, as the request meets a general criteria for a special land use approval in the Corporate Park Overlay District, the building and site can accommodate the proposed uses and renovation of the building, and updates to the site will bring the parcel into closer conformance within the design guidelines of the district. Now therefore be it resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Charter Township of Canton, Michigan does hereby approve the request for a multi-tenant building which could include general office, medical and dental clinics, training and education centers, standard bar restaurant with accessory pickup window, specialty retail, business services, and personal services establishments, and general retail uses on the tax parcel listed, subject to final site plan approval.
Support?
You? All right, yeah, there was a very detailed motion there, so I don't have to go into the summary. The punchline is Hayden's, which has been empty for some time. The people who own the property today have an opportunity to put in a rental shop there and a small drive-through, and then the back side of the property, I believe, is going to be a shared office space for those enterprises that are there. And that's what we're being asked to approve is the special land use. So I don't know if there's something you want to add from a planning perspective, planning?
Yeah,
Commission?
I think there was a lot of questions because of if you think about that building, you're dividing it into three pieces, and that makes long, narrow areas. And also, there's going to be a drive-through, and Jeff did say that it cannot be a fast food restaurant or a drive-through restaurant. It have to be like an ancillary to like a prescription drugs or something like that, or pickup like that. So he was very specific about that also. And I don't know if that was because of the narrow area, and there wouldn't, but he did say that we could not have a fast food restaurant there.
I know that the plans are under review and being discussed. There was a preliminary meeting several months back where it is very much intended to be a drive-through restaurant there, and we've got a representative for the property here, Brian Amon. Do you want to add anything, or in terms of the status? Because this is just setting it up to allow us to go from what it is zoned for today, special land use for multi-tenant.
Thank you, Brian Amon, on behalf of the applicant. This is really because of the corporate overlay that is in place that doesn't allow drive-throughs even as a use. And so essentially, as a permitted principal use, but it does allow as an accessory use. So we're essentially mirroring what occurred with Starbucks on the kitty corner to that. That is a part of the business there. And since we're dividing this building into three uses, essentially, we put in there essentially the allowable uses under the ordinance that you're approving, because we're trying to get this project approved so that it can be sustainable for the future. We know, for example, the only tenant I'm aware of right now is Delta Dental. The rest of them are going to be, we'll see what comes along. But by doing this, the uses that are listed in there, it allows us to prevent any one use from going dark in there or replacing it with other uses within that are listed in the approving ordinance. And so the Canton has some definitions as to relates to restaurants or whatever else like that, but it's the occurrence of having a drive-through window because it creates unique circumstances for any site because of stacking issues and those kinds of things. You'll be happy to know that since the last meeting, as we've come in for the site plan, the curb around the drive-through has been eliminated so that anybody can pull out at any time. And so that was one issue that was raised at the Planning Commission. But you'll see that in the site plan. That'll be coming back here shortly. So, yeah.
I was concerned with getting trapped in the drive-through with kids screaming in the back. We discussed that a lot.
Legitimate concern.
Comments, questions?
Yeah. Hi. Hi, Brian. Interesting concept, and the question that came to mind to me was that having been there both in the Mexican restaurant it was before
Right.
and Hayden's, that's a really tall building. Are they considering like making a second floor, or is it just going to be 3 really tall inside?
Essentially, the building, what you see, the external edifice is a little bit different than the internal, but the building is, in the new site plan, is going to be reworked a little bit. We're changing some portions of it, but some of the stuff that you look at on the outside as tall was intended to hide mechanical equipment and those kinds of things.
Oh.
But
inside, the
yeah, but
ceiling was
internally
high.
they'll be doing some, Aspen Dental, for example, has a very set design, which has hanging ceilings and those kinds of things, creating different elevations. So they'll be doing that in the actual build out of the uses, depending on what their typical use will call for. But you're right. Yeah, the restaurants had essentially opened, exposed ceiling up there, part of their aesthetics. I think you'll see that broken up into different uses here. And the way this was intended, we're trying to make sure the building, by subdividing its uses, you won't have an instance of an entirety of a building being dark again in the future. If a tenant goes out, then we'll have, based on the uses you will have pre-approved for this site, we'll have the ability to get another tenant amongst those category of uses to fill that and prevent it from going
And
dark.
lastly, just to conceive it in my mind, if you're looking at the front door, is it like one business to the right, one to the left, and then one in the very back?
No, there'll be one in the middle, one on the end, basically 3 fronts. But the Aspen will be kind of oriented on the west side, glass around the front and the west. It's going to look like, it flows more to the west, but it'll be showing on the front as well.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Good luck.
Thank you.
No other questions or comments? Those in favor of the motion as presented, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Item G2, consider approval of fire station site plan for fire station number 2.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that the board adopt the following resolution for the approval of the site plan for Fire Station Number 2. Whereas the project sponsor, Canton Township, has requested site plan approval for a municipal building for a fire station on the north side of Warren Road between Lilly and Haggerty Roads, and whereas the Planning Commission reviewed the request and voted to recommend approval, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Charter Township of Canton, Michigan does hereby approve the site plan for a municipal building for a fire station on the tax parcel numbers listed, subject to all applicable local and state requirements.
In summary, Canton Township proposes to build a new fire station on the property currently occupied by fire station number 2 and the 2 adjacent parcels which we have acquired in the last year or so. The existing fire station is aging and needs modernization to effectively serve the community. The existing fire station will continue to be used during construction of the new station. Once the new station is ready to be occupied, the old station will be demolished, and the remainder to the parking lot and site work will be completed. So we've seen this on a couple different phases or pieces. We had a study session on what the building's going to look like. This is just the next step forward. There were some notes that, Steve, you had sent out asking questions about Anne Marie's question regarding
Things I
the
saw in the Planning Commission, yeah.
heating and
And the setback.
all the numbers you've seen to date. And I sent out an email. It was pretty late in the day, so I don't know if all the trustees
Oh, I didn't.
even had an opportunity
Okay.
to see it. I think it went out about 4:30, 5 o'clock. No, it was after 5, actually. But essentially, the baseline costs that you've seen to date are based on normal forced air heating, cooling, I don't know, the base system, though, is about 200,000. The system that you're proposing is like 400 and something thousand, or the payback on the two are significantly different, and that's the information shared. So it's a financial decision, in my opinion, but we can talk about it as it progresses. We're not buying the heating and cooling system tonight. All we're doing is moving forward with approving the site plan.
So then will we ask questions on the geothermal and the heating in a different meeting then? Because right now we're just doing this?
Yeah, I'd prefer we focus today on just the site plan, and then do send in your questions and comments, because not everybody's had a chance to see the data that just went out late today. And we're months away before we're having to finalize the design. Or I guess I should ask the architect, when do you have to finalize the design on the heating and cooling system? Oh, yeah, please introduce yourself and what you're.
Hello, Mike Malone with Partners in Architecture. And where we are with the documents right now, we're kind of in the final design or construction drawing phase. So we're getting close to getting ready to issue this for bid. So, we'll entertain any options the township would like to consider. But we're trying to hold true to the budget that we've presented previously. We've been given stiff marching orders. We need to, bring this in within budget. So that's what we're trying to do. But the analysis that you've sent around, I assume, was the three options of the different systems. Yes. And our mechanical engineer did an analysis, a cost estimate, and then based on current energy costs for electrical and gas usage, they came up with a payback for the various systems. And the geothermal system has a really big payback. It's like 200 years or something like that, because the cost savings from the base equipment that we're looking at to that is pretty minuscule in the scope of the job.
Yeah, so please, gather up your questions, send them in probably through myself, and I'll get it off to Josh. Josh will share it with the architects and folks that are helping with this, with the design.
Yeah, that's fine. We can take a look at it. I think one of the challenges that we face on that site, and as we talked about at the board study session, is there's floodplain issues with that site and development. And so when you're starting to work, and Michael certainly knows a lot more about this than I do, but when you're starting to talk about geothermal and solar panels and things of that nature, where are you going to put it? How are you going to run that underground? How is that going to work in a floodplain? And so
That was
that
a
could also
concern that
raise those
Jeff
costs as
Goulet
well.
also shared late this afternoon. So again, all the trustees may not have seen that yet. So review those two documents and then go ahead and fire questions back. And then there's property adjacent that's listed for sale that we have not acquired yet, and we're not considering at this time because I don't think it's competitive on what the value is. Would that help? I mean, that's a question maybe I can send in, is if we had the land adjacent that we haven't acquired yet, would that help us with installation of geothermal system?
Property, I believe, is at a lower elevation, so I don't really think it's going to help in this regard, because it's really all in the floodplain, most of it.
Understood, which is why the value that the guy's asking for the other property adjacent is too damn high, which is why we're not buying it, so, all right. But we can formalize our questions, send them in through Josh. Go ahead, Stephen.
So tonight we're approving the site plan, is that
Yeah,
what
that's
we're
all we're doing
doing?
tonight.
And we've seen a lot of these diagrams, I think, in the past. Is there anything new to them that changed, like due to setbacks or something?
No, the plan is pretty much the way you've seen it. We've added a lot of detail, obviously, to the documents. We've incorporated finishes and all those types of things that the contractors will need, to establish a competitive price. But the design is pretty true with a few minor tweaks, but you probably wouldn't even notice in the grand scheme of things. But the overall aesthetic is the same.
And one variance I think I saw was the height of some part of it.
There's a
that
couple
were-
variances that were granted, yeah, one for height, and one of them were in the setback slightly based on the restrictions of the boundaries of the property.
Okay, thank you.
But
If I may, I'll just make this statement now. So since obviously we're in the site plan process, but eventually we'll be going for the approval, I don't see myself supporting any new construction of municipal property without any type of alternative energy or green type of implementation in it. And, as probably ideally the person on the board who will be dealing with the consequences of global climate change more than anybody
Hey, what
else
are you
on this
saying?
board.
yes, we're older.
I think it's really important that local government take a moral leadership and do our part. And so I would recommend that we look into that. If there's a discussion about the cost associated, any additional cost associated with that, I think we should have some creative conversations.
Yeah, we would certainly welcome those conversations. I think when you look at the document that was sent out, Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, there's the base price, or the base unit, which is your standard forced air heating, and then there's an option number 1, and then there's an option number 2, which is the geothermal. What we're looking at is the option number 1, which is it's more energy efficient than the base unit, but it's less initial construction costs than a geothermal, and we won't have the same issues to deal with floodplain and other things that we would have to look at. We are looking at the building itself. Everything we're looking at is intended to be energy efficient, reduce cost, metal roof, things of that nature, and that's what we're looking to do.
Maybe we could do this. Not a full-on study session, but maybe have a few of the trustees sit down with your engineer in the next couple days, literally next week maybe, middle of next week. Have a deep dive conversation and then try to build consensus. Because if we're going to make a significant change to the base budget, we need to be talking about that now to get your funding approved.
So we don't send questions in?
Yeah, absolutely. Get the questions sent in, so that'll help him prepare for the meeting that he has. And, I don't know if Michael, Anne Marie, and one of you three is interested. Pick between you three, and then we'll just get good representation there. Ask the questions, drill deep. Okay? All right,
Okay.
so we'll try to get that coordinated next week, if we can. Next week.
I had the privilege of sitting in on a couple of meetings it's amazing what goes into the construction there. But the chief and a lot of detail. Nothing gets by this guy, I can tell you that. He was even looking at the hardware on there. The thing I liked most of all is that there was representatives from the firefighters there. There were 2 gentlemen there. So that the building itself, it's going to be a beautiful looking appearance building. And it's going to have all the bells and whistles that they need to do the job that they're paid for. But it's also going to incorporate input from the people that are going to be working there. And I think that's important. And I was very impressed with those gentlemen that were there. They had a lot of good thoughts. They're going to be living there. They're going to be working there. And between the leadership that Jeff and, what are the 2 things I told you?
On time and under budget.
On time and under budget.
Seeing no further comments, those in favor or questions, those in favor of the motion as presented, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item G3. Consider, load up here. Consider approval for change order to complete Independence Park sidewalk gap with Rotundo Construction Corporation.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to approve a change order contract with Rotundo Construction Corporation for the Independence Park sidewalk gap in the amount of $144,030.43, and to authorize the contractor to pull the permit with WCDPS, or Wayne County Department of Public Services, on behalf of Canton Township.
In summary, Canton Township has a long-standing sidewalk gap at Independence Park along Denton and Proctor Road. In an effort to complete the trail and the sidewalk system in this area, the design of this gap was completed last year by NCI. The design has been approved by Wayne County for permit right away. Engineering services obtained a cost of $124,816.75 from Rotundo. To complete the sidewalk gaps, it proposes this, award this work to Rotundo. The permit from Wayne County will cost us $6120, $6,120. The proposed change order for Rotundo includes permit fees of $130,000. And this is, in addition, we have added 10% contingency of $13,093 for a total change order of $144,030.43. We have Bill Surchek with us from engineering. If the board has any questions or comments they would like to make. Go ahead, Stephen.
Hey, Bill, I have a question for you. I was just wondering, which budget year is this funded out of?
So this is funded from the $250,000 set aside for 2019 by the board last year,
Last year? Okay, so, and
for
was
the
this,
19 budget. Yeah.
is this going to take the place of anything else you were planning from last year? Or, like, this was
No.
part of last year's plan,
This,
right?
yeah, we started looking at those gaps all along Denton and all along Proctor. It's a significant area.
Yeah.
We started that design about 2.5 years ago and have worked out some of the details with the county. So when the $250,000 was approved last year, we had our eye on this along with a few others that are underway.
And I say, I'm looking at a map, a satellite view of Independence Park. Is it going to go all along Independence Park?
Yes, the full north-south length of Denton and Proctor, east-west.
And just there, so not like, I see some gaps just to the north.
Yes.
There is a sidewalk almost all the way, and then there's a gap towards just the end there.
There is, and the other thing that was completed at the end of last year is there's a new pedestrian bridge and biking bridge that crosses the Rouge River.
Just
I
north.
would say just west of our parking lot on the north side of Proctor, if that makes sense. We have a temporary parking that's used by the soccer, but Pulte completed the bridge immediately west of there, and there's actually a trail that runs right to Proctor. So we're trying to prep that area, and this sidewalk will be a significant addition.
Yeah. Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Go ahead, Summer.
The contractor that we're using for this project is the same one that we're using for our sidewalk replacement program in subdivisions. Will they have any issues completing that work along with this work?
No, and we know that last year they did not finish, so that was one of the reasons I wanted to limit their existing work, knowing this was coming up, and I really do not want to push this till the end and leave stuff till next year.
Other comments? Those in favor of the motion as presented, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item G4. Consider award of a contract for professional design engineering services to Wade Trim for improvements at the Administration Complex Park, at Heritage Park, paving and design.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to award a contract and purchase order for engineering consulting services for the Administration Complex Heritage Park paving and design to Wade Trim and Associates Incorporated in an amount of $43,500 plus a 10% contingency of $4,350 for a not-to-exceed amount of $47,850.
I'm going to jump into the background here. Heritage Park has not been addressed in any recent parking lot repairs and has a significant amount of paved areas, including parking lots at the sports facilities, the maintenance building, and network of asphalt paths. The design and repairs of this complex will likely take several years due to the lack of historical information, the need to address existing and future drainage. Engineering Services has commissioned a full survey of the storm sewer system and topography of the park. This will be followed by a layout of multi-year concept for phasing the work. Phase 1 will likely include Heritage Park and the maintenance building. Second would be Heritage Park parking, then softball fields and pathways, and then the last piece would be the Veterans Way, Civic Center Boulevard to Summit. Engineering Services anticipates Phase 1 design to be complete late spring, early summer, with the construction of late summer, fall. 3 firms submitted proposals on April 4th, 2019. Manick Smith, Spalding D. Decker, And WTA. WTA provided the lowest cost proposal along with an innovative drone survey for topography and can meet the aggressive schedule. Again, Bill Surchek will answer any questions that the board may have. No? Okay, seeing none. Those in favor of the motion as presented, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item G5. Consider approval and award a purchase order contract to DPR Architects for architectural and engineering services for Public Works Storage Facility expansion.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to award a purchase order contract to DPR Architects in an amount of $35,500 plus a 10% contingency of $3,550 for a total not to exceed amount of $39,050.
In 2002, the existing storage facility was constructed at the Public Works campus. The current building is shared with Leisure Services, Public Safety, and the DDA. Since 2002, the Public Works fleet, equipment, and inventory has increased, and the department has outgrown its portion of the storage facility. Some equipment in the inventory is now stored outside. Expanding the storage facility will allow us to securely park all the equipment indoors and extend the equipment's useful life. In March 2019, requests for proposals were solicited for architectural and engineering services for the expansion. Approximately 6,000 square foot, 75 foot by 80 foot of additional building space is being proposed. One proposal was received from DPR Architects in Plymouth, Michigan. The proposal in the amount of $35,500 includes architectural, mechanical, electrical, structural, and civil engineering services. And I think we've talked to this in the past. Has everybody been out to the facility and toured?
Yes.
Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, those in favor of the motion as presented, please state aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries. Item G. Consider the purchase of 3 mowers for the Parks Division.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to authorize the purchase of 3 Skag Turf Tiger 2 zero-turn riding mowers in the amount of $37,188 from Wayne Lawn and Garden, 39915 Michigan Avenue, Canton, Michigan, 48188, with funds coming from budget account from the capital outlay machinery and equipment account.
This one has kind of started and stopped 3 or 4 times in the last couple of months, and Greg's finally got it put to bed for us. Greg's here if anybody has any questions for the acquisition of 3 mowers.
Get credits for returning in the old equipment?
We'll sell those through the finance department through Bidcor.
Apply it to this then?
I'm not sure if it applies to this. I'd have to check with finance
it's all
on how
general
those
fund
credits.
dollars?
I believe those are just credited back to the general fund revenue. But if you want to direct it to parks, we can.
Greg has a bad habit of spending a lot more money than he brings in.
Oh.
Any other questions? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Seeing no additional comments or questions, those in favor of the motion as presented, state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item G7. This will have 2 motions on it. Thank you, Clerk Segris. First reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 46, Article 2 of Canton Township Code of Ordinances entitled Offenses Against the Person, Section 46-31, assault and battery, to increase the maximum punishment to 93 days in jail.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to introduce for first reading an ordinance which amends Chapter 46 of the Canton Township Code of Ordinances, Article 2, Section 46-13, entitled Assault and Battery, Domestic Assault and Battery.
Okay. In terms of background, currently Canton Township's assault and battery, domestic assault and battery ordinance has a maximum penalty of 90 days in jail or a $500 fine. The police department has requested the ordinance be amended to increase the penalty to a maximum of 93 days in jail or $500 fine, which is the same penalty under state law, in order to provide a greater punishment and deterrent for the offenders. And essentially, what we're doing is we're aligning local ordinance with state law. Go ahead, Steve.
Mr. Director, I fine with that. I just didn't understand the implications of the extra 3 days. Is it just so we're aligned, or is there some benefit we get from the extra 3 days?
It's a technical cleanup, and under a 90-day misdemeanor, that offense has to be committed in an officer's presence to make an arrest. A 93-day misdemeanor does not.
Oh, okay.
And so this is just that oversight that was originally put in the ordinance, and it's a technical cleanup. And we are also changing some wordage to add the word battery, which was a recommendation of the prosecutor, Greg Demopoulos.
I see. Okay. Thanks.
Seeing no other comments, those in favor of the first motion as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Second motion.
Supervisor, I move to table for consideration the proposed text amendment to Chapter 46 of the Canton Code of Ordinances and schedule a second reading for May 14th, 2019.
Support.
In favor of the second motion as presented, state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item G9, consider request of Michigan Townships Association to discuss and consider a proposal to make township elections nonpartisan.
So how do I make a motion?
We can delay the motion. Yeah, we do the discussion first and then present the motion. That'd be fine.
Right.
That's acceptable to you. Let me go back up to the top. Over the years, okay, now this request is coming from Michigan Townships Association, that townships across the state of Michigan review this potential legislation that is out there, that's currently, I think, in the Senate. There's some material has been distributed previously. Over the years, the township officials have suggested to the MTA that elected Michigan Township offices should be nonpartisan, consistent with longstanding policy and bylaws. The Michigan Townships Association Board of Directors put the question before the membership at the MTA annual meeting in 2012, where it was voted down by the MTA membership in attendance. However, the state representative intends to introduce and actively promote legislation to make nonpartisan offices optional to townships as an option rather than a mandate. The bill creates a policy dilemma for MTA between continued policy guidance on the question based on 2012 annual meeting vote that did not address a nonpartisan option. The MTA's core value supporting the principle of local control, also a considerable period of time, has lapsed since the membership voted in opposition to nonpartisan elections, and arguably the perspective of township officials may be different now. MTA will need to take a position on the optional nonpartisan election bill in the near future, even if that position is neutral. Because the MTA board has already finalized and provided notice to the membership proposed 2019 policy platform, the upcoming annual meeting is not conducive to ascertaining how the broadest spectrum of MTA member boards and their communities would value the opportunity to hold nonpartisan elections. To ascertain perspectives of the MTA membership, the MTA Board of Directors is asking member township boards to put this issue on the agenda and discuss it to take a position in township board meeting. The MTA is taking this unusual step with the hope that the issue will be framed in terms of a position that best reflects the values of townships as communities as opposed to what's in best political interests of incumbent officials. MTA is requesting township clerks, okay, we bypass that because we're already here. To assist your board in its discussions and table is there's attached a listing of pros and cons which were submitted in the deck. And what it was very clear, the big last Big 20 township luncheon that I had was MTA is working very hard not to get individuals' opinions. They're trying to get a feel for what the board from Canton and all the other townships across the state, where they want to take it. So that's why it's being presented, and Clerk Segrist shared a very strong opinion early on. I don't know where you sit today, but I look at this, and I have no problem with taking townships to nonpartisan. Cities have been doing it for decades. I don't think someone's political party defines them as a human being in total. There is always that independent option. What I think is more palatable, the legislation that's being presented here, is each township board can collectively, as a group, decide to opt in, opt out, year to year, election to election, so it's not a one-way mandate. That's my personal opinions, and I'll stop talking and listen to anything anybody else wants to say. Go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, I think it's probably more palatable than it was when they've tried this before and forcing it. Personally, I think voters should not have information about their candidates taken away or lessened. They should have more information. That's, to me, what transparency is about. So I'm not really for this. Also, I'd rather our board elections not end up down at the bottom of the ballot like nonpartisan elections occur. I know we're not being asked to vote on this at this time, but I think my message will continue to be that I'm not for this, so I'll probably oppose it, vote to oppose, send a message of opposing it to MTA.
Really, all I'm looking for is kind of a consensus, so I don't know if someone else would like to share their thoughts.
I couldn't see in 2012 when a similar issue was brought forward, did the board, I wasn't on the board obviously at the time, but do you know, did the board pass a resolution?
This board did not consider.
In 2012?
Did not, no. It wasn't even a consideration at the Canton Township Board. This is an MTA board discussions and past discussions over the years that's being brought to the surface again.
And they didn't ask for the board in 2012 to
No,
give
they-
the
they
same
didn't-
kind of
well,
opinion.
because of the timing of the request is, just like SEMCOG's policy platform, which I did last year, that they rewrite every 2 years. MTA does the same thing.
Sure.
Whoever those policy writers were, representing all the townships across the state, we weren't part of that process, but because they've already completed their process for 19, they're now reaching out to the individual townships and say, tell us what you think. So it's a timing issue really for MTA. Because the legislation at the state level is being pressed through or talked about more hotly, and Summer may be able to add in terms of process and who's driving the bus or whatever.
I, honestly, I looked for the legislation, but I couldn't find it, so maybe I overlooked it, but I couldn't find anything that had been introduced.
Proposed
Probably proposed, yes.
development, it has not been completed yet.
Yeah, because I also tried to research it and couldn't find anything. And I know many of us, I think transparency is very important. Many of us are precinct delegates. I was, the Democratic State House representative, so I would be opposed to this just because, people have core values with their party, and I think the townships run fine. A lot of cities have gone, had to have assistance, and I think the townships have been doing fine. So if it's not broken, why change it?
What difference would it make, Pat, if we went to nonpartisan? How would that affect the process at all?
For each election leading up to it, we would have to have an RBA that says, do we want to have our next election be partisan or nonpartisan? The board then would make a decision, vote on it, say, yeah, let's do it or let's not do it. And then the next election would either be partisan or nonpartisan.
I don't have any problem with it one way or the other. It doesn't, people select whatever they want to select for whatever reason they want to select. Being forced to make a choice to a party doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Why not just vote without any labels? Do you have to be a certain race, color, religion to vote? No, we're a U.S. citizen and you vote. And you don't vote Republican or Democrat or Independent or Communist Party or Socialist or whatever the hell is out there, you vote. And to put a label, to make people have a label upsets me a little bit. I don't like that. I don't like with labels. And I don't think the labels mean a whole hell of a lot, to be honest with you, in the end run. You look around the political scene today and, you know, how do you define who's on the right, who's on the left, who's wherever they might be? And people change their mind all the time. So I don't like people being forced, citizens being forced to be labeled in any particular way.
Can I get one more opinion so I can get a sense for where the room is at?
I will, I think one of the interesting things is what the voters decided in Canton Township in 2016, right? We're probably one of the few townships that's a bipartisan board. You know, it's interesting. It is interesting. You know, I think for over 100 years, townships have been elected on a partisan basis, and the voters showed enough intelligence and nuance to decide to elect people from different parties to run their local government. And I would argue we've done a pretty good job. I mean, when I look at what the MTA offers with regards to, I mean, their assessment of state and national politics, I would agree with. I don't know if I would agree that it's partisanship that's caused it, but I would argue that state and local and federal government is almost disgusting, to be quite honest. I would say it's a lack of civics, maybe more so than partisanship, and a lack of core values. I think this board has done a really good job of coming together and working for the citizens. But I mean, to Diane's point, I think I look at it, I'm a Democratic precinct delegate. You know, Pat, I know you're a Republican precinct delegate. You know, everybody on this board, with the exception of Diane, is currently a precinct delegate, and Diane was in the last election. So I think if more bodies focused on bipartisanship instead of pretending at nonpartisanship, we'd be better off as a society. So I'm opposed to this because to me it amounts to withholding information from the voters. I think the voters are entitled to know the political leanings of their elected officials, and I would be opposed to any measure, even if it's local control. I'd be opposed to any measure that withholds information from voters.
Offers more transparency, like everyone's other side.
And not to get into a debate or an argument, but when I talk about what happens in Canton Township, to your point, Michael, is we have gotten a lot of things done in a bipartisan way. I like to think that the decisions that we make week after week, month after month, don't have a damn thing to do with politics. It has to do with what makes sense for the community and what's in their best interest. I think this, in large part, is driven by what's happening at the state and national level in politics, and there's nobody sitting here that would disagree. It's a mess. It's embarrassing. So there's decisions that I've made here that I've been called out by folks on the left. There's decisions we made here have been called out by folks on the right. That tells me I'm doing something correct, right? So that being said, you want to read the motion based on where I believe the consensus is of the majority, but then we'll go ahead and have a vote because I think it'll be a split.
Supervisor, I move that the Canton Township Board of Trustees opposes the proposal to make township elections nonpartisan.
Second?
In favor of the motion as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, clearly the motion carries. Those opposed? Me? Two. Okay. Very good. So what, Mike, can you, to conclude this one for us?
Fill it out?
Do a little write-up and get it back to Judy Allen and Larry Merrill over at MTA.
They have requested this by April 30th. So, yep, I'll get it to them by Friday.
A week early. Good job, guys. All right, okay. Moving on to item G10. Why am I not seeing
Is it?
G10?
Well, it wasn't, it's on your paper.
Yeah.
Oh, got it here. Here we go.
Pull up 2 pages. Actually.
Yeah, we had some language changed, which I should have, thank you.
It wasn't even in the packet, just some charts.
Package?
The expenditure recap for the
Go up.
Oh,
If you go up
I-
2 pages, you should be able
Oh,
to
it-
find
it
it.
actually-
The bookmark is off.
The
that's all.
bookmark was off. There
In
you
the
go.
deck.
Gotcha.
Thanks, Greg.
And the purpose for the
Thank
printed
you.
copy today was, there was the budgeted account numbers and final numbers Wendy did a tweak on. So there was an original deck that was sent out last week, and all this is a cleanup of account numbers, I believe,
The dollar amount changed.
dollar amount and account numbers. 'cause
Right.
based on- All right, so, item G10, consider approval of a budget amendment for cable television production assistant upgrade and factor analysis.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to make the following budget amendments. Increase salaries and wages full-time account of $12,000, increase in various fringes account of $2,500, and a decrease in the transfer to fund balance of $14,500.
Second.
The Human Resources Manager completed a factor analysis after a submission of a job analysis questionnaire for both cable television production assistant positions. After the factor analysis, it was determined that a reclassification from a grade A to a grade D on the Merit Commission wage scale was in line. The upgrade was approved by the Merit Commission meeting on April 22nd. These upgrades necessitate a budget amendment in the amount of $14,500 from the cable fund balance. And additional background information, because this is an unusual RBA for us. When the 2 cable television production assistant positions moved from part-time to full-time back in 2013, the positions were placed as a grade A on the non-union wage scale. The JAQ, the job assessment factoring, what's a JAQ? What's Q stands for?
Ocean?
Job assessment questionnaire.
Questionnaire, okay, thank you. Questionnaire recently completed was far more extensive than the original JAQ, lending itself to a more comprehensive review of the duties performed in the position. After completing the factor analysis, the Human Resource Manager felt the positions warranted an upgrade. Funds for the cable television production assistant come from the cable fund, and these upgrades will have no impact on the general fund whatsoever. And I think we're all aware that our cable fund balance is fat, and Greg's team's working hard on buying us a new theater, going to be beautiful when it's done, system. So, in the meantime, does anybody have any questions for Greg and stuff? Or statements? Questions, comments?
Are we going to be able to do more at the station? Like, or is it just going to be the same programming?
It's the same programming and same job. It's just a refactoring of the jobs that they've been doing, a relook at them to see what the appropriate salary is for the job duties performed.
Programming, who decides the programming? Is that in part of your Leisure Services Committee?
No, it's our cable team works with each department to determine what shows they want to produce for their particular area. So each department kind of has their own input into any shows that they want to do.
Older sister was actually the host of, so it was called It's a Woman's World back in the
We have to
80s.
bring it back.
Well, Anne Marie, if you would like to do a show, there's a concept out there it ran for a couple of years, actually. Local cable. Yeah, go ahead, Stephen.
Not on the topic on hand, but related, like, as we're talking about other things about the cable. Is there a way to start broadcasting this outside of the cable services? Do we broadcast it on like a website or over the or YouTube or something like that?
We do put some shows on
Specific
YouTube.
shows, but not like a channel that people can just watch, right?
No,
Okay. So,
We have our local
cable access.
access that we can put whatever we want out there, but then a majority, like of all of our meetings now, those are all YouTube, right?
Correct. Yeah, they're on
meetings,
the
but I
cable
meant
access.
the content from the cable, because the younger generation that will be around long after I'm gone, apparently.
Will Mike
yeah.
still be here?
Michael will still be here.
All right.
He never ages, but
Actually,
they don't even have cable anymore, right? I mean, is there a way to start reaching those that only have Hulu or Netflix or, or YouTube, something like that?
Right.
Just think about, it's not a important
Yeah,
thing,
currently,
but
they're
yeah.
they're not, but
Yeah.
we could look into that.
Yeah,
They do
Okay.
create digital content. Cable is creating
Absolutely.
digital content.
And it's being put, what, on our website, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
things like
yeah,
that,
you
social
click on it
media.
from the website, yeah. Okay, it's probably sufficient. I was just thinking about my kids who don't even have cable.
Sure.
Don't watch any of the online cable shows or any of that unless they're online. Thanks.
I have a question, because this is the first time I've seen this before. It just, I'm thinking about this because, so it looks like, so the recommendation for the upgrade goes from the HR director to the merit commission. The merit commission decides to do the upgrade, and then they bring it to us to pay for it,
Final approval.
for final approval. Okay.
Correct.
But so the position has been upgraded or has not been upgraded yet?
If we say yes, then it will be. If we say
Yes.
no, then it
Yeah,
goes back to the
it
drawing
wouldn't
board.
be effective without because we can't pay for it without a budget amendment.
Good, okay, yeah, so that, I just was trying to understand the process, because I was like,
Yes.
wow, they upgraded the position, and they're, like, okay, we
They
did this, now
approved
pay
it,
for
but
it. I'm like,
it would
it's an
not be,
interesting procedure.
it would not be able to be done without a budget
That
amendment.
makes sense. I just wanted to know the,
But I also think that you've worked with Corinne for JAQs, right, in your area?
yeah,
Just to make sure that we're being fair and right and tight. And in
Oh,
this-
yeah.
In this case specifically, they looked at it and said, yeah, they need to get an upgrade.
yeah, I'm not speaking to the merit of it, and again, this isn't general fund dollars, right, so,
It's
Correct.
cable fund money, right?
Cable
Correct.
We'll cover this, yes.
oh, this is great.
Currently, there's 4 employees in there. 2 of them are in this job classification. 2 are in a higher, well, I guess there's 5. There's a cable supervisor, but then there's 4 employees. 2 are at a higher level, and then these 2 positions were our entry-level positions that are paid relatively low.
No other comments or questions? Those in favor of the motion as presented, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I believe that was one motion.
Yep.
Okay, that concludes our official business. Are there any staff comment? Any,
Citizen Police Academy is in full swing, so I did put that out. If there's interest from the board to attend tonight, just reach out to Barb Caruso and she can schedule that.
I'm sorry, what time of day is that?
On Thursdays, and I think the schedule has the times in that, and
an update to it recently, the schedule. Yeah.
Okay.
then I think it's been in the media, but the fire department, I just want to put a shout out to the fire department for their efforts. They reduced the ISO score, which is the Insurance Service Office's score, of the fire department for the township, down from a 5.8B down to a 3. That was a tremendous amount of work, both by the fire department and the DPW, to get that score down. And it's really a testament to the improvements that have been made in the fire department over the last 4 or 5 years. So pretty proud of their work and their efforts to reduce that, which ultimately saves our taxpayers' dollars.
Saves money in their insurance costs, because the rating that Josh is identifying right now is what the national insurance companies use to establish property insurance rates. So it's a huge win for the community, who hopefully will see in the very near future reduction in their rates.
It's very similar to accreditation, where it's a third party. I always told that I can walk around and say we've got the best fire department around, but what does my opinion really matter in the big scheme of things? This is a third party coming in and really taking an evaluation of our department and scoring them based off specified criteria and their ability to respond to a fire within the township.
Any additional public comment? Any additional public comment? Okay, seeing none. Any board comments?
One, well, we have Commissioner Daub here. People are coming out of their houses, and I've seen them trying to drive over Lily Bridge that isn't there. I saw. So I know it's spring. Do we have a date for the bridge? Spring. When does spring end?
Can
June 21st.
I help you, please? Just present it as it is. Because there's some gas lines and that are interfering, that were not completely understood before Wayne County got into the design of the work. There have been delays. I believe the engineering is now finally completed, and they're going into the construction bid release process next. Yeah, so the punchline is, we're really looking at fall before this thing's going to be completed. It's
Which
not-
year, which
Spring is bye-bye,
year?
unless you know something different. And I got,
Which year? You said
this year.
right.
So Bev's going to be into, okay, well, it was supposed to be March when Larry, was it Larry Young was still there? It was going to be March, and then it became June, to which I called him out then and said, Larry, June is not spring, June is summer. And then he told me about the gas line, so we are where we're at, and I've got a meeting with Bev Watts again tomorrow, and this is probably the top 2 or 3 items we're going to be talking about, so.
Some of the residents are enjoying a reduced traffic there, too. They have told me.
Absolutely. They've got the safest neighborhood in the community. because
Always a silver lining.
people
If you
don't wanna
look hard
do that
enough.
long drive around.
And the bikers on the trail,
Right.
don't just go right across, don't have to slow down.
There's no wear and tear on the new bridge yet.
At all.
Lasts longer. I have a.
Please, Michael.
So while we are not the school board, we are residents of Canton Township, and we have 3 local high schools, right? Plymouth, Canton, and Salem. Well, Bridge Magazine last week did a study of, and they created Michigan Academic State Champs, if you will, right? So they were analyzing all the high schools and ranking them based on how many students go to college. And for the upper income schools, I like that they broke it down by income, because comparing, Crestwood High School against, Northville High School doesn't make any sense at all, because those students have different challenges, right? But in the upper income schools, our 3 public high schools came in, Salem High School came in 5th with 86.8% graduates going on to college. That's a 2 or 4-year school. And then Plymouth High School came in 6th with 86.3, and Canton High School tied them at 7th with 86.3. I don't know why Plymouth knocked Canton out, even though they were tied. I'm a Canton alum. I think Canton should have gotten it.
Hockey. It was
Anyway,
hockey.
and there are some schools that have that had over 50% of their population as Title I, who had some really impressive numbers that were like in the middle, in like the lower to middle 80s. So there are some schools out there that are doing some really good work. But we can be proud of the 3 high schools here at the park. So yay.
And this week, isn't it the EEF?
Uncorked.
Uncorked wine tasting event.
Raise money for that, for our schools.
On Saturday?
Right, there's a peace walk. On,
1 o'clock Saturday.
This would be appropriate to share what you've got going.
yeah, so there's a peace walk, and then there's, on May 2nd, at Heritage Park here is a National Day of Prayer. So you're going to have all kinds of faiths back here, and everyone's going to say a prayer. It's a National Day of Prayer across the country. I know a lot of corporations are doing something also.
Summer?
April 30th is the last day to get in letters of interest for local subdivision repairs. They are due at 4:30 p.m., so get those letters of interest in.
And April 26th, this Friday, is the last day for letters of interest for the Ethics Committee. We've gotten quite a few. So that's exciting.
No additional comments? Call for motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
Favor, state aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Be safe.